Hello everyone! Today I'm sharing with you 4 secrets to help you master perspective with your leaves. Now, they're really not secrets. Most artists know these 4 things, but if you're new to watercolors, you may not have thought about this in this way. I had a subscriber ask me to talk about foreshortening, and that started me thinking, when I was learning watercolors, no one ever explained this to me in this way, and I think it would have helped me. So I'm going to show you 4 really tips that may help you. Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Teresa. I'm a surface pattern designer and watercolor artist. I am using my Bao Hong Academy watercolor paper that I reviewed a few weeks ago. I'll put that link up above. And I'm going to use my number 12 Silver Black Velvet and my number 2 Silver Ultra Mini. You can use, whatever brush you like to paint leaves. These are just the ones that I really like. Number 1, be free with your curves. So by this I mean you almost cannot mess up a leaf. If you're painting in a loose style, any mark will work for a leaf. But I am going to show you some of the most popular ones that I do. First, let's see just a straight on leaf. Just your basic leaf would look like this. So we're looking right at that leaf. And I'm going to do 3 of those because we are going to talk about those more in just a moment. And this is very toothy paper, which means it has a lot of texture, which I love, but I really want us to be able to see these very well. So I'm probably going to go over any areas where it gets kind of a dry brush look to it, just because we're going to need full leaves there for our example. Okay, so those are straight on, we're looking right at them, but if you add curves to your leaves, you can add so much dimension. So let's get us a limb or a branch here. One of my favorite ones to do is an S-curve leaf because you don't have to do anything else to it. We'll start out at the limb or the stem with just the tip, bring it up, and then use the whole brush to bring it down and flip it back up as you bring your brush up. Super easy. That automatically looks like that leaf is coming off of that stem and curving over and reaching out to us. Super easy. We can also use a C-curve. So because I'm on that side and I'm right-handed, I'm going to start out here rather than starting at the stem. So we want to have the tip, then the whole brush down, and then pick your brush up and bring it back to the stem. Nice C-curve. And depending on where we put shadows, that could look different ways. So I think I'll do another one of those. Just so we can talk about that in a minute. And the more shallow you do that curve, you can actually make it look like it's reaching out to the side and curving a little bit, like that. Or we can go upside down. What if we have it bending down? Start out here with the tip, bring it around, lifting your brush all the way to the stem. Now that's obviously bending down. Super easy. If we want to show a leaf, especially a long leaf, in a profile view, let's do the S-curve and a longer S-curve. So if we have one out here, that's another S-curve, but it's a longer leaf. If we want to show that in profile, it would be like that. It would just be basically the same width. That's that leaf in profile. Super easy. Just like I was saying, just about any shape can be a leaf in loose watercolors. I also like to just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. There you go, there's another leaf. Be intentional with your center veins. Now by that, I mean your placement of the veins can totally change your perspective. That's why I did these three. These all look like we're looking straight on at them. So if we just place the first vein right up the center, we're obviously looking at that straight on. But what if I move that vein out to the left side? Now that leaf looks like it's turning away from us. And if I put that vein over on the other side, now it's turning more this way toward us. Simple, just one line, and that changed the perspective 3 different ways. Of course, you can always add the other lines to go with it if you want. I don't often use veins, but sometimes I do if I want to add a little extra perspective. So on this one, where this one is flipping up, I'm going to start at the tip and bring it all the way around. And this one, I can start, if I want that to look like a sharper flip, I can start in the middle there and bring it around like that. And that gives a little bit different perspective. And this one almost looks like it's twisting to me. So let's just, that's what I like to do. I like to look at it and say, what does that look like it's doing? Well, this looks like a twist. So I am going to accentuate that by twisting it more. And this was the one that was flipping down. Okay. And this one, I decided to start there at that flat point so that it looks like the leaf tip is folding even more away from us. And here I'm going to do the same thing. I am going to start right about here and bring it around, just to give the illusion that that is a sharper turn here. And then with this, I could go down the center, or I could add a little bit here on the bottom to make it look more like it's a profile. And this would be the vein. And that, I'm not even going to add one because that's the profile view of that. I mean, we could add one along the bottom because that's where the vein would be, but you don't have to. Okay, that brings me on to number 3. Don't be afraid of the shadows. Shadows can really add a lot of depth to your image. We can do shadows in a number of ways. We can double dip our brush, or we can add them after they dry. So I will show you both. I'm going to first double dip my brush in sap green. Make sure I have really good coverage. And then I'm going to dab the tip on a paper towel and then grab a darker color just on the tip. And I will do that one. That S curve again. And look how nice that is. That automatically put darker pigment right here, which makes it look like the underside of the leaf. And there's a little bit right here. You know, when you're double dipping that way, it just depends on how it turns out. You know, you don't always have a lot of control over exactly where that darker color is going to show up. You can always touch it like that and add a little bit as long as your leaf is still wet. Or once it's dry, you can add it wherever you want it. I like putting it right underneath that curve like that. You can do it that way, or you could actually add more and have the illusion that the whole edge of your leaf is turning up. Either way, we could go back and add shadows on these as well. If I add a little bit of shadow right here, it's a little more convincing that that leaf is flipping up. We can actually have the whole shadow go the full length if you wanted. Same thing on this one. We could just add a little shadow here where it might be flipping up, or we could add some under here. This one got a little dark, so it may be a little harder for you to see. Number 4, use different sizes for your leaves. Don't make every leaf exactly the same size. Anything that's larger will look like it's closer, and anything that's smaller will look like it's in the background. So we could add a smaller leaf right in there. Smaller, that's either a little baby leaf or it's further away from us. Especially if we put a little shadow right there, it looks like it's moving away from us. Let's just look at a few more examples. So we're going to have we're going to do 1, 2 wiggles on top, but then I'm going to come down on the bottom edge and just do a gentle slope like that. And I'm actually going to pick up some of that pigment because that's going to be fairly dark and I don't want it that dark. We're going to need to see a little better than that for the example. All right, now we can do the opposite of that. We could have that gentle curve on the top and then do the wiggle wiggle on the bottom. And then just fill in the rest. Again, I'm going to pick up some of that pigment because that was a lot. And I just don't want it that dark. All right, and then we'll come back and do the lines and the shadows for those in a minute. Then let's bring this down. I'm going to do the same exact strokes, but we're going to do different lines and different shadows. We do 1, start at the same spot, and do 2, and bring that second one out longer. Very similar to that. Okay, we'll do the other one in this direction. 1, start it there, and do 2 coming out longer. All right, same exact strokes. While we wait for those to dry, I'm going to show you another really fun thing to do. Is something called foreshortening. Foreshortening is when your object looks like it's projecting out toward you. So there's a trick to doing that. The shortening, meaning that you have to shorten the object in order for it to work. So the first one is very loose, and this is one that I use quite a bit. So let's just have a flower petal. It's usually when I use it. It's when I have a flower and I want that leaf to come out from under the flower, under the petal. We're not seeing the whole leaf, so we're not going to see the stem part or where it attaches to the flower. We have to use something called foreshortening in order to make that convincible. So we have to cut that leaf off. Let's say if it were this leaf, we're not going to see all of this, so we have to decide, okay, how far back do we want to see that leaf? And we'll only paint that portion of it. And I'll let that dry just a little bit. Okay, these are dry now. So on this one, I want this one to look like it's coming toward us this way. So I am going to have the vein run from the tip right through where that little center hump is. And then we can add some veins just to help with that illusion. Be sure you want to curve those though, like they would curve on the actual leaf. And we can use the shadow to go underneath here. And that just helps with that illusion. And on this one, I'm going to take the vein up fairly high and bring it down and have just a little bit of shadow under there. And maybe a little bit right in here, just to give a little more depth. To that leaf. Same thing if we wanted to add some veins. Just to help with that. Now on these two, this one we're going to make look like a taco, like it's folding up. And the way that we do that is that we draw that line going right there. Remember, we had 2 strokes there. And we fill in this side with darker pigment. And now that leaf looks like it's folding up. And if it were folding in that direction, we might have some veins going like that. And on this one, I want this leaf to be turning under, very much like this one. So I will just follow that second line. And have those going like that. Again, I could add some shadow under there. In fact, I think I'll add it all the way down. Very easy. It's all in adding curves, then adding your center line where you want it to be, and then other ones, and adding some shadow. Very easy. Anyone can do this. So this one, I love this one. This is a very fun one to do. So we want that leaf to look like it's popping out from underneath that bloom. So I'm going to use my whole brush. I'm going to place it down and drag it out. And if you want it to be a larger leaf, and you can make that leaf as messy as you want it to be. Another way to add veins is to use something sharp. And so since it's coming out from underneath that petal, I want to curve those veins. And we'll curve it out this way to make it look like the leaf is kind of curling under. You can add as many as you want. So there you go. I can also show you foreshortening in another way. What if we had this leaf right here and we wanted that leaf to be bending toward us? There's a real neat trick for that. That's foreshortening. So if we had this leaf, part of it's going to bend toward us. Let's look at this one. Part of this leaf will bend toward us, so we have to shorten that leaf, right? Because we're not seeing the whole thing stretched out, we're only seeing a part of it. So an easy way to do it is to draw a heart. Fill it in. And then I like to add a little shadow under here while it's still wet, but don't keep messing with it. Just kind of drop it in and let it go. The more you mess with it, the more it's going to mess up. And so if we really wanted this leaf to bend way over, we would just make that point longer. We'll let that dry. But what if we wanted to make that leaf bend the other way? Well, we still have to shorten it, right? So I've kind of made a little hump right there to show where that center portion is. So there's my leaf, and it's bending over. So if it's bending over that way, just to help with the illusion, I'm going to put a little bit of the tip, as if we're seeing the tip from the side. And maybe make it a little bit darker. Now that this is dry, I can come back with a little bit lighter pigment and just paint the top. I'm going to keep it kind of light because the sun would be probably shining on top of that top portion as it bends back toward us. There you go. Now that leaf looks like it's folding back this way. Now that that one's dry, I'll add a little more shadow underneath that tip. Okay. And you can add center veins if you want. And that's still wet, so I'm not going to add that one just yet. Well, I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. I have a lot more really great watercolor videos coming up real soon. And if there's something special that you would like to see, please leave me a comment. I'm more than happy to address special requests. Also, if you paint something from any of my videos and you want to post them on Instagram so I can see them, please use the hashtag paintingwithbela. Thanks so much and hope to see you back next week.